everyone, this is Holly Knutson. I'm a functional health practitioner from Utah, and today I want to talk a little bit about leptin resistance. Now, I know we hear a lot about insulin resistance. It's common, it's a precursor to diabetes, but we don't hear about leptin too much. But just as cells can become resistant to the effects of insulin, they can also stop responding to leptin. Leptin is a hormone that's associated with feelings of fullness after a meal and hunger. Interestingly, leptin resistance can be caused by insulin resistance. And in this video, I'll be discussing facts about leptin resistance, how it correlates with weight gain, inflammation, osteoporosis, fatty liver disease, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and potentially cancer because of its effect on immune function. Well, what happens when leptin levels aren't balanced? Well, just as chronically high levels of insulin cause insulin resistance, high levels of leptin, along with reduced sensitivity to the hormone in the brain, cause leptin resistance. And leptin resistance is one of the fundamental causes of weight gain and obesity. When leptin levels are balanced, your body responds appropriately to signals of hunger and feelings of fullness because the brain gets the message that it's time to stop eating. Here's how it should work. You eat a meal, your fat cells release leptin, you get the signal that you've had enough to eat, and you stop eating. This is normal. But this process goes south when you become resistant to the effects of leptin. Instead of your brain getting the signal that you're full, you keep eating because your body thinks it's starving. And this is a result of faulty leptin signaling. Leptin is a hormone, and as we all know, hormones are extremely powerful. This is one mechanism in which weight gain can eventually progress to obesity. Leptin works in conjunction with ghrelin, which is called the hunger hormone, and they both regulate energy balance in the body. Well, what causes leptin resistance? It can be caused by a number of lifestyle factors, which is actually good news because we have control over how we live in terms of what we eat, how much we sleep, and our activity levels. So here are some of the causes of leptin resistance. Excessive fructose consumption, high-carb diets, not getting enough sleep, not exercising enough, high triglycerides, and insulin resistance. And now I'll talk a little bit about each of these. Fructose is the sugar in fruit, and it can cause cells to become resistant to leptin. Glucose is metabolized directly into the bloodstream, whereas fructose is metabolized in the liver. This is significant because the liver regulates appetite and is the main fat-burning organ in the body. But you might ask, isn't fruit healthy? Yes, fruit is healthy, but the problem lies in the overconsumption of it, especially fruit juice, which can be easy to overindulge in. Ideally, you don't want to consume more than 20 to 25 grams of fructose per day. To put this in perspective, a glass of orange juice made from, probably 5 or 6 oranges equals close to 18 grams of fructose, with each orange containing about 3 grams. Fruit that contains more than fruit that contains more than 4 grams of fructose per serving is considered high fructose. Fruit juice and dried fruit should be eaten sparingly due to their high fructose content. And other high fructose fruit includes dates, prunes, raisins, grapes, plums, kiwi, mangoes, and cherries. Your best bet is to stay with lemons, limes, and berries if you're trying to lose weight or if you're insulin resistant because they're low in fructose. Another common source of fructose is high fructose corn syrup, and it's pervasive in the American food supply and is in virtually all processed foods. High fructose corn syrup contains 50% fructose, whereas fruit contains roughly a third fructose because it also contains glucose and sucrose. High fructose corn syrup is genetically modified, so it's very cheap to produce, and this is why it's used in processed foods. Steer clear of anything that is boxed or packaged to prevent impairments in leptin signaling. Eating too much fructose can lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, insulin resistance, and leptin resistance. Well, what is the impact of high-carb diets and insulin resistance on leptin resistance? Well, insulin resistance caused by high-carb diets is a precursor to diabetes. It can take years to develop. As cells become resistant, insulin and blood sugar remain elevated long after a meal is eaten, and this burdens the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas. As insulin resistance progresses, insulin is no longer produced, so glucose can't enter the cells. It can take years for cells to become resistant to insulin. The condition progressively worsens over time as the person continues to gain weight in the abdominal area without realizing the damage that is occurring in their body. This is because weight gain and other symptoms can easily be blamed on other factors. Insulin not only regulates glucose levels, but also regulates the storage of fat. When insulin levels are high, fat cells are stimulated to take up glucose and turn it into fat via a process called lipogenesis, and this initiates a vicious cycle because it's not possible to lose weight unless insulin levels are low. And this is why obesity is epidemic. Fat keeps you fat. Elevated triglycerides can also cause leptin resistance, and they're a type of fat in the blood that correlate with obesity, leptin, and insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. In regard to leptin resistance, high triglycerides can hinder the messages that leptin sends to the brain. And since leptin regulates appetite, failure of the brain to receive these messages can lead to cravings, overeating, and weight gain. Lack of sleep is also associated with leptin resistance and is a known contributor to increased blood sugar and high insulin, as well as the release of stress hormones. Sleep is an important regulator of leptin. Disruptions in circadian rhythm and sleep disorders impact the concentrations of leptin in the blood. In fact, patients with narcolepsy were found to have reductions in leptin levels. Sleep deprivation, which is considered getting 5 hours of sleep per night or less, significantly increases obesity risk by stimulating appetite. Going to bed an hour earlier every night may help you lose weight. Exercise, reducing the amount of caffeine in your diet, eliminating sugar can all increase the quality of your sleep. Try implementing a consistent sleep schedule and practice good sleep hygiene, such as turning down the lights an hour or two before you go to bed, sleeping in a cool environment, and making time for relaxation so you can unwind before you go to sleep. There are ways to reverse leptin resistance, although it's not going to happen overnight and you'll need to be diligent and patient. Reduce fructose consumption to under 20 grams a day. Eat a low glycemic diet, and this will help get your triglycerides and insulin down. Get plenty of sleep. Drink less alcohol. And implement an intermittent fasting routine into your schedule and do high-intensity exercises 3 times a week. Intermittent fasting is a time-tested tool to reverse both leptin and insulin resistance, and it helps you shift from burning sugar for energy to burning fat as your main fuel source. And this will help you lose weight and will regulate your appetite. Intermittent fasting is not as hard as you think, especially once you've made this transition to becoming a fat burner. And think of the money that you'll save on food while saving time on meal prep and cleanup. And that's actually a really big benefit that I've enjoyed. I do the 16-8 method of intermittent fasting, and this means I eat for an 8-hour period and fast for 16 hours. So essentially, I just skip breakfast and eat an early dinner and then don't eat again all the way until I eat lunch the next day. High-intensity exercise, abbreviated HIIT, H-I-I-T, is also called interval training, and it's a strategic way to exercise because it doesn't take much time. It decreases insulin levels and releases human growth hormone. Well, human growth hormone is the body's ultimate fat burner, and when you combine this with reductions in insulin, you have a highly effective strategy for losing weight and increasing the cell's sensitivity to leptin. And interestingly, strenuous exercise can worsen leptin resistance. High-intensity exercise sessions can be performed in a variety of ways, including lifting weights, speed walking, cycling, body weight exercises, and jumping rope. In summary, leptin is the key player when it comes to regulation of body fat. It is the primary driver of weight gain, obesity, and inflammation too. To keep leptin working properly, closely monitor the amount of fructose and sugar you eat. Get at least 8 hours of sleep per night, especially if you're a woman. Women need more sleep. And implement an intermittent fasting and high-intensity interval training routine into your schedule. These strategies will not only help you lose weight, but will keep your leptin levels humming along as they should. Have you heard of leptin resistance? Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching.